Oh, good evening, everybody. Oh, God.
Dear.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the world's smelliest live stream. Mark has just blessed us with what can only be described as a gift.
Are you trying to say I farted
Yes.
just before we went on air?
Yes, it was bloody awful.
It smells of sandalwood
Yeah, that's a word
and
for it.
glorious fragrance. We're professional, aren't we?
Anyway.
Good evening, everybody. So who are you?
I am James, the resident tech wizard.
You're the resident tech wizard every week.
Okay, I'm the resident tech lizard.
And my name's Mark. I'm a fat, grumpy mastering engineer, and I'm quite smelly today.
Well, I'm Sam.
I'm Sam recovering from some major trauma.
I'm full of Mark's fecal
Oh,
excrement.
God. Right. On that note, why are we here? Why are we here, Mark?
Why are we here? What, this week?
Yes.
I mean, because we're doing a live stream. And this week we're doing a live stream. We thought we'd talk about something that we don't often talk about, really, which is how to kill Sam. Which is songwriting or musical composition, and where you can get inspiration from, hence the thumbnail and the title of this video. So just to explain that very quickly and explain that it's not clickbait, I once wrote a tune. To say I wrote a tune, I kind of ripped a tune off.
Ripped another one off.
From a band called Corduroy, who in turn had ripped it off from the theme of Eurotrash. So it was kind of heavily inspired by those two pieces of music. But I just started humming it in my head whilst walking round IKEA shopping for worktops. So named the song Worktop.
Inspirational.
Inspirational.
Very situationally perfect, I would say.
So that was that. So and because of that track went on to an EP, which then got us our first record deal. So I actually got a record deal by walking around IKEA. There you go. How about you?
How about me? Have I written a song in IKEA?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Not called Snurgersburg or something like that.
I had so many wise things to say, and then I feel like my brain's been corrupted.
It has.
The blood-brain barrier has been
Standard
breached by Mark.
It's just standard being in this studio.
But I'm all right. I'm okay.
You're all right. You get over it. Cool. There's a nice breeze blowing through.
No, there isn't. You're lying.
But there will be in a minute.
Anyway, right. So, what is this live stream about? For the people who have tuned in and listened to some
It's
farcy
about
stuff.
where you can get inspiration for coming up with a song, because there's lots of stuff on YouTube, isn't there, about mixing and what plugins to use and mastering and all that stuff. And if you haven't got something decent to record in the first place, then that's all kind of pointless. So we thought we'd go back to that initial plotting of inspiration, where that comes from, how you can encourage it. Different ways of writing things. And
I mean, we've set ourselves a bit of a challenge to discuss this in a way, haven't we? Because it's probably the hardest thing to discuss. Because, like you say, on YouTube, there's a lot of videos about, mixing or production or, things like of those natures.
how to operate a compressor. And
Exactly, but there's not a lot really about where do you get that moment of inspiration? Where does it come from? How can you develop that? How can you come up with an idea? And we've challenged ourselves to try and discuss that, and we're going to see how far we get.
Probably about 10 minutes in, I reckon.
So I think we probably need to talk about what is songwriting.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Yeah, because technically, if you look at the dictionary definition, I've never written a song, because a song should be sung, shouldn't it?
Well, this was the discussion we had today, wasn't it?
That's why it's called a song. Although you get bird song, and they don't. Do they sing?
Bird song, yeah. Well,
I guess I don't sing lyrics. They sort of go.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
Like
I mean, to me, a song or being a songwriter is fusing together lyrics with melody and chords or harmony, and having a somewhat coherent structure to that.
Right.
For me, but obviously there's also writing
music. What have I written?
What have you written?
Yeah.
What I would say that you've written is a piece of instrumental music, if we're talking about Worktop.
Right.
But it just depends.
So does that not count as a song?
What, because it doesn't have any words?
Because it's not sung.
I mean, I'd say the technical term for it is a composition, isn't it? You've written a composition, so you're a composer.
So does that mean I can go home?
But it's in a popular music form, isn't it? So at the same time, you can sort of say it's a song.
Yeah.
I think personally one of Mark's best songwriting pieces is the "In My Face" song, which was featured on our channel.
Let's not go into that.
Yeah, exactly.
All 3 words of it.
Yes,
but there you go. That's a song.
Yeah, I guess that's a song.
And it serves a function and a purpose, and it's memorable.
Yeah,
so it works.
I guess so. I'd be interested to know, for those of you, if there's anyone still watching anywhere in the world. Because I get a lot of music through from you guys and girls to master, and it's about 60-40. About 40% of it is songs, so be it a band or with someone singing lyrics, but the other 60% isn't. It's instrumental, or it's dance based, or it's not a traditional song like Bing Crosby might sing, or something like that. So it'd be interesting to know how many of you are actually writing songs and they're being sung somehow, and versus what percentage aren't.
Well, Trevor Noakes said the definition of a song is a short poem or other set of words set to a music or meant to be sung. The instrumentally stuff is therefore not a song.
No, well, it's mostly instrumental stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that is, because that's what I create traditionally, but the people that I'm mastering for don't know that. So what is it about me that attracts that kind of...
I think it might be the kind of thing you've grown up with. And
but I'm not really communicating that with people. I guess I am now via the YouTube channel, but the traditional labels and stuff, it's a lot of... In fact, it's mainly instrumental music. The commercial stuff I'm doing is probably 80 to 90% instrumental. That's weird, isn't it?
Well,
anyway,
we got a super chat from Benj. Thank you very much, Benj.
Thank you,
very
mate.
kind.
Very kind
for 420, saying inspiration comes from drugs. Everyone knows this.
It's true.
Well, I guess you could say that your inspiration for Worktop, so let's call it an inspiration trip. You went on a trip. An inspiration trip, staying with that drugs metaphor, or maybe a quest or something like that. And there was something there that inspired you to write something. What was it? What were you doing at the time?
It's quite a happy tune.
Right.
And normally I don't associate happiness with a trip round IKEA. Normally
no, you try and avoid it.
Tantamount to being in hell.
Yeah.
And it started off with some meatballs, as it does, obviously. And I had just I didn't have the big one, I had the medium one, so I wasn't like carved out. I felt quite nice. I had a nice coffee, which was free, which was great. And then I knew where all the little shortcuts were, so I didn't have to go through acres and acres of crap that I didn't want to look at. I could go straight to the kitchen bit, and that's when I sort of started humming the melody in my head, and then got to the kitchen bit, and it was narrowed it down to what kind of worktop I wanted, and I wanted a dark one with a different sort of edge banding, and then that basically left me with a choice of 2. It's that one or that one. Oh, hang on a minute, they're actually the same one. You can flip them up the other way, and that's really clever. They're not going to have any. That's the next thing, isn't it? You get to the warehouse and you're greeted with an empty shelf, and you've got to wait for someone to fly over from Sweden with a forklift license to get it down off the thing above. No, someone came up to me and said, "Are you all right there? Do you need any help?" And I said, "Yeah, can I have a 3 metre and a 2.5 metre one of those, please?" And she went over to the computer and typed it in, and I paid, and she printed out a thing and said, "There you go, that's ready to collect whenever you're done." So the whole thing was a very positive, happy experience, and it was quite a positive, happy. I was sort of going, "Oh, I might have a look around this bit now," and then it sort of extrapolated in my head. And then by the time I'd got to the van and I was getting the worktop in, it was sort of complete, and I knew exactly what I had to do when I got home, which I did.
Which was build a worktop.
Which was fit a kitchen. Yeah, and then completely forgot the song. Tune, not song. No, I was humming it all the way home.
Yeah,
literally.
So the argument for that would be you just didn't put lyrics. You just didn't put any lyrics
it's just,
or words.
There's no lyrics. Yeah, because it literally In My Face is about as good as I get lyrically, which goes in my face, putting things in my face, in my face, putting things in my face.
True masterpiece.
The extent of my lyrical ability.
Maybe we take a step back and we look at inspiration to start with. So we're I guess you need to think about how do you find that inspiration. That's one way to do it, isn't it? To walk around IKEA.
Yeah.
All right. Potentially.
Like a nut job.
If you are a songwriter or a budding songwriter, what are things that you can do? I mean, I guess, for example, you could go for a walk. That's one idea. Yeah. Just leaving your current... If you're at home the whole time, and where's the inspiration coming from? I don't think you have to intentionally go out for a walk or go and grab a coffee somewhere for that to be the inspiration for something, but actually taking yourself out of a situation and putting yourself in another situation can give you some inspiration, much like what you experienced in IKEA. Yeah?
Yeah. And we were talking... That's funny, because we were talking about that earlier with... So I smoke, which is really stupid. And the idea, the silly things, the silly ideas we have for our videos and stuff like that, or if I've got a problem, if I'm stuck with something, if I need to think a bit creatively or something like that, I go out and have a fag, and that's the point at which all the ideas come.
Yep.
And then I go, oh yeah, that's brilliant, and then put it out, and then come back in, and then we're off again. So that's, a chat. Whereas if I just sat at the desk or whatever, it would likely never happen.
So yeah. Seeing as your songs tend to come, so talking about the Get Up songs at this point, tunes, tend to come from inspiration of things that have happened in furniture shops and all that kind of stuff. Can you explain moo juice? So Mark Claydon said, don't forget moo juice.
Don't forget moo juice, which we never recorded, did we? That was, because that's got lyrics in, so that's technically a song. Oh, I'm going to have lyrics. I wish I'd dug these out now and we could have played some. I don't know what was going on with that. I do. That was inspired by... I'd used the Roland vocoder back in the day, but I'd never used the vocoder plugin, and there was the one that came with Logic. We're talking like 2005 or something here, so I thought, there's a vocoder in Logic, I've never tried that, let's give it a go. I think I'd run out of milk or something. I had to go to the shop to get some milk, and went and got some milk, and then just wrote a song called Moo Juice, which was about milk. Hence,
so it had lyrics as well.
It did, yeah, and it was experimental because I can't sing for shit, as you know.
Yeah, I really remember that song. The more you talk about it, the more memories it brings back. It was clavinet kind of lead line, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's clavinet down. I can't remember how that goes, but it starts with some clavinet, and then there's the Moo Juice. Because I can't sing, you can play it in with the vocoder, and it doesn't matter. It sounds like Daft Punk, but yeah, that's where Moo Juice came from.
Interesting.
And also, Mark, while we've got you on, we could talk about the process because it's very difficult to name instrumental music, and the amount of times we'd be in the studio and when we collaborated as a band, and it wasn't just me being mental, everything got better and sort of went up a notch. And I remember many times we were in a studio and we'd write a song in the studio, and then we'd go and have a cup of tea in the cafe or something and think, well, what are we going to call that? And all the time it was based around looking around the cafe and going, well, there's a cup of cold coffee there, let's call it cold coffee. Then most of our titles were based on food or sandwiches or just something ridiculous like that, because we just look at the first thing, let's call it that.
So you'd say that the music itself wasn't actually inspired by anything in particular, but rather...
Yeah, it was enabled by silly experiences.
So you were naming things after the fact, for example?
Yeah.
But it wasn't actually...
we'd write a tune and then work out what to call it afterwards. Okay. Whereas Worktop was very different.
Yeah.
That was actually inspired by the Worktop buying. Just only cancelling, don't I? Clearly.
Well, I mean, inspiration's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it can come from the most unlikely of places. I remember the song that you did like a mastering video of one of the songs from my old band, I Can't Stop. And I remember quite clearly knowing what that song was about as I was writing it, but not having I needed... So I had a chorus. I knew where I was going with the chorus, but I needed verses and I needed something interesting and a narrative to talk about. And I remember there was a TV show on in the background that I wasn't paying any attention to. And I just turned around and looked at it. And this guy's digging a grave.
Right.
to throw a body in. And all of a sudden I was like, that's the first verse.
Wasn't me, was it?
Say again?
It wasn't me, was it?
No, it wasn't you. I don't think you've ever been on television.
That's on the dark web.
Yeah, okay, all right. So inspiration can definitely come from the strangest place. I find for myself, like, often clearing my mind.
Right, yeah.
Is actually a really good way for me to...
Yeah, and for me, that's what going out and having a fag does.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just kind of...
So it's just kind of trying to get to that point where you're relaxed enough to forget. Because when you're writing songs, you're not thinking about the things that we're programmed to normally think about, which is, oh, how am I going to run my business? How am I going to earn money? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? You're reflecting back on things.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you're in a completely different mindset. So you have to kind of filter everything out and then get that, like, kind of monotropic focus on something that's right in front of you and stay there. And that's a really hard thing for people to do, is to actually stay in that moment with something and stick with it. And often a lot of people give up. They sort of decide, well, I don't want to do this anymore. That's something that I've experienced a lot, especially in co-writing,
right,
things like that, which, you know, I'm sure we can get onto. I mean, like, writer's block, you know, people often talk about writer's block, and to me that's an interesting thing, because you can have writer's block, but at the same time, if you have like building blocks that you can work from when you're writing a song, there's plenty of inspiration around everywhere. You know, you can some people say journal, like get up in the morning, just write down what comes into your head.
Yeah. You
know, it doesn't have to be anything particular. I think we always have this idea that everything we have to say has to be full of meaning and it needs to be inspirational. But actually, you think of some great songs like
Mood Juice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and actually, there's a lot of beauty in like normality and things like that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, so I tend to find if you just like start describing something before you actually get to the meaning of it, sometimes the meaning reveals itself. It's like a puzzle.
Right.
You know, the songwriting process is a bit of a puzzle, and it's fun because you're working something out and you're not quite sure where it's going to go. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, when do you think you need to know what a song's about? Like, either whether you're writing a piece of music or whether you're writing words.
In my case, I don't think you ever need to know.
No. Is it important?
No.
No?
It's more important for me if I'm listening to someone else's music. It's more important for me that I can put my own interpretation on it rather than be told what it's, which is why traditionally I don't really listen to lyrics at all. And I can we were talking about a couple of songs yesterday that really have some kind of emotional trigger for me, and I can't quite work out why. And I realised yesterday morning that I actually have no idea what, even though I've heard them 1,000 times, I've no idea what either of those songs are about at all, because I don't listen to lyrics. And I actually had to Google the lyrics and go, right, what the hell is this? Oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense, I guess. But until that point, I had no idea what they're about.
But do you think it's a useful tool to have an intention with the song? If you're writing a song...
I guess it can be.
Like, having an intention behind it can often help, you know.
Yeah, I think sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't matter if that intention ever, you know...
Yeah, you ever get there.
The most important person is the person listening to it and what they think they're hearing, and it doesn't matter any other way. But I think it's important to at least have an idea of what you're writing about, whether it's, you know... I mean, if you're John Williams and you're scoring Star Wars, you've got to kind of know what that...
You've got to know what's dramatic, what's softening, what's... Yeah, you got to...
Yeah, exactly.
And he's obviously brilliant at that. But what would he be like at writing lyrics? There's a question.
Well, lyrics are an interesting topic.
It's interesting hearing how other people work with songwriting, because I'm hopeless at it. Like, it's one of those things that I've never really been able to do very well at all. And I find it really fascinating hearing how other people get those ideas and put them together, and how you get inspiration, because you might get inspiration from walking around IKEA and looking at worktops, and I'm just like, it's just a furniture shop. But then I might look at something else and think, that's triggered something. But as I'm not a really good songwriter, I don't think I could ever really harvest that that inspiration.
But that is just because you've got. Is that because you've got now I'm having technical difficulties. Is that because you've just got a different brain and your brain doesn't work in that way? So probably. If we go to moving away from songwriting and going to the video creation, I don't let you write videos anymore. because you write them and then I read them and then I go, that's really boring, and delete it. Which isn't, but that's not how your brain works. For the technical stuff, you're amazing, and I can't do that. I can't do the editing and the technical side of it.
I think it's very much a personality thing, isn't it? No one's good at everything. Well, I'm very much not a super creative person, and that's why I'm sitting here pushing buttons.
But you can do it with someone else, so you can hopefully put good videos out with me, and you can write songs with someone else. So
I'm good at the editing side. I'm good at the post-production, all that kind of stuff, and all of this stuff and all of that. But then if I sit and try and write a song on my own, not going to happen. So the music that I wrote with Jamie, for example, a couple of years ago, probably couldn't have done it on my own. But as soon as I get that first bit of inspiration from someone else sitting with them, just that spark of an idea, because it's starting that's hard for me. I can kind of finish the thing, I just can't begin it. I just can't get that kind of starting seed of an idea.
Yeah.
Well, the creative process is fascinating, isn't it? Because you kind of start with, there tends to be 4 steps that people go through. You seem to be this kind of, I don't know, have maybe a bit of a precocious talent for something, and you're throwing everything at the wall, seeing what shit sticks and what doesn't, and you're really enjoying it and you're really wrapped up in it, and then you kind of start to take a step back and go, well, that's all a bit rubbish actually. And that's the point at which you have to make a decision. It's well, am I going to double down on this and work on the craft of what I'm doing and accept my failures, and accept, or not failures, but accept that a lot of the stuff I write is going to be rubbish, and just store that as a piece of information rather than going, oh God, I'm rubbish, I should never do this again, which might actually be what you're coming up against when you're, writing, instead of actually, because I'd say 99 out of 100 ideas I come up with are awful,
I don't think anyone can write perfectly every time.
No.
It's the same with anything, like YouTube videos. You might write 100 bad ones before you find that one good one.
Yeah, well, there was an interview with a very famous songwriter. I do apologise, I can't remember who it was, and he's had something like 60 #1 singles throughout his career. And one of the questions was, how do you consistently write such brilliant material? And his answer was, I don't. I've written something like 20,000 songs, and 60 of them happen to be good.
Yeah, but there's this point that comes, so that's the craft, isn't it? That's where you're working on your craft. But I would argue that there comes a point, so you start being a little bit precocious, then you start working on your craft, and then there's this thing that happens where you almost become like a conduit.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but where the song literally just falls out of you.
Yeah.
You just sit down, and within 5 to 10 minutes, you've got a whole arrangement, you've got all the lyrics, you've got the melody, all of it's there. And you can only do that when you've learned how to do all the other things that go with that process. Right. So you've not mastered, but you know your instrument very well. You can use that tool to move around the chord progressions, etc. and it sounds like a song. Yeah. And you already know where you're going before you get there. But you have to go through that, what I would think of as a second phase of learning the craft and doing it again and again and again and again, and figuring out how best to do it. That's what I think. And then I guess in order to become successful at that, people have to like what you're doing after the fact. But those are kind of the 4 stages I think that it falls into from my point of view. And then there seem to be 2 different types of songwriters,
right,
in my opinion. Again, these are my own opinions. They're not endorsed by Present Day Production. You seem to have these sort of genius types. So maybe Stevie Wonders, or we seem to have a lot of artists that have these bodies of work that are doing really short space of time. I think Stevie Wonder won 4 Grammys in the space of 5 years in the 70s.
Yeah.
How old is he? He's in his early 20s. So he's got these 5 years.
Sure.
Where he's won 4 Grammys. I think Bill Withers steps in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what's happening there is you're just kind of systematically writing songs, and they're kind of getting done. But then you seem to have this other side, which is what's kind of
just hear Mark dying in the background.
you have yeah, okay.
Today's going well, isn't it?
Yes.
And then you have like these other siders, like masters of this craft, where they're kind of like trial and error, and it's more about the journey. It's more about, well, I don't know where this is going to end up, this song or this thing I'm writing, and I'm just going to kind of go along with it and see what happens. That seems to be the two kind of categories that people seem very general. I know.
Yeah.
There's two kind of categories. You'd be very systematic about writing your songs, or you just sort of go with the flow a little bit.
So, like film composers, there's normally an intention there. They're writing music for picture, so it's got to emphasise the emotion that the director's trying to get for the picture. Whereas the other type of people that write music for picture, the library music people, haven't got a clue what the music's going to be used for, so they're writing music, and then directors will go, okay, I need a track that sounds like this, and they'll.
I mean, the library music guys will probably follow a theme or like an idea. So, like a car chase, for example. And then base the whole thing off of that, rather than a full story, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's really fun. Like writing to a brief is really fun because you've in my opinion, you've already been given the inspiration to work towards, which is great. Like if we're talking about finding inspiration, we're talking about a very specific sort of field of songwriting, aren't we? Which is almost like, I guess the singer-songwriter thing is what kind of started that, because before that you had people penning, writing songs for artists, and then the artists would go out and perform those songs, so they weren't authentically linked to that artist. Whereas as soon as people started writing their own songs and performing their own songs, all of a sudden you kind of feel like you're also getting a piece of what they're thinking and how they're feeling. And is that better? Like, do you feel like you can connect more with an artist that's like that, or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I feel like you can a bit more. I feel like if I listen to, I don't know, someone singing the Great American Songbook, for example, and they're doing it, I don't feel, I enjoy it, but I don't feel the same connection to that as maybe as I would if someone like, I don't know, Paul Simon or whoever's written a song about an experience they've been through. Because there's an authenticity there that's
not there with the...
You still got the authenticity with the other type of performance, but the authenticity comes from the performance, and it comes from the, the interpretation of the song, and it comes from the great musicianship or whatever else. But I think that type of the craft is quite interesting, and then it's like the music for me has to kind of reflect the lyrical content, which I think is a skill as well in and of itself. Like, you have to kind of write, you think about what was the song, Pure Imagination? Was it Pure Imagination?
That's one of them, which was the Gene Wilder, the proper version of
I'm just hearing that now, and I think that's actually perfect. Like,
it is perfect.
Think about it.
It's a bit creepy at the beginning, and then it goes just all magical and wonderment, and
but like that is so these melodies, they're written. You can still speak them. If you spoke though, come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
Yeah,
like you're speeding up the word imagination because it's one word, so it's twice the speed of the rhythm of come with me and you'll be. So when you're writing a melody and you're putting lyrics to it, I tend to find that if you could speak that and it would still kind of make sense, and then you're just adding colour by adding a melody that's moving up and down or whatever.
Right.
That tends to be something that, just listen to any song that you like and listen to how it's coming. 9 times out of 10,
the music suits the lyrics. If it's written.
Yeah, and unless it's deliberately being written in an ironic way.
Yeah.
For example, so the point is the irony of the music not quite fitting the the words or whatever. Then that's a different skill, isn't it? But that seems to be
so. And that kind of makes sense because I don't listen to lyrics, as we've discussed. But my favourite songs and some of the music I really love that's based very much on lyrics, I know what those songs are about by listening to the rest of it. So if I listen to a Stevie Wonder song, Stevie Wonder's a genius, so his music suits his lyrics perfectly, and even though I might not necessarily intentionally be listening to the lyrics, I'm listening to the melody and the arrangement and the musicianship, and I still know what it's about because he's written that to perfectly suit what what the song is about.
But lyrics are the same as music, because music is tension and release. The whole thing is tension and then release, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether or not you choose to release it.
Sometimes there's no release, and I like music like that as well.
I do too.
Where it's just like.
So that's exact. And well, of course, you play a lot of. They play a lot of funk, which is a lot of tension, and not a lot of release at all, is it? Especially if you're sitting on like a dominant 7th, 9th chord for a lot of it. So that's like minutes. That's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
So the lyrics also can reflect that as well, because life is tension and release, isn't it? So you can play games with stuff like that. I mean, I'm trying to think of a song that best. Do you know What a Fool Believes by who wrote it? Michael McDonald, Kenny Loggins, Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
That song starts on like the 5 chord. Right. It's moving down the 5 chord, then it goes down to the 4 chord, then it goes down to like sort of the 3. It's like an inversion of the 1, I think. And the lyrics about that are about some guy who has concocted in his mind the fact that this woman from his past loves him. I'm pretty sure that's what the lyrics are about. And then they meet up, and the only resolution in that song that happens comes in the bridge when you're getting just towards the chorus. What a fool believe. Like when you get there, you've already passed the resolution of the song, which is anybody else could surely know. That bit there, like, and it hits the tonic for one point when it's giving her point of view.
Right.
And then it goes to a flatter key.
Right.
Which is even more like dark tension for the chorus, because he's confused, but he's kind of wondering, and it's just so clever. And I think for me, a perfect song has all those ingredients. The music reflects what's happening in the lyrics, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the conduit effect, when it all comes together and it kind of makes sense. And it takes fucking long time to get to that point, I think, where you can actually pull all those tools together and for it to work. So why do you think musicians, not all musicians, but a lot of musicians don't listen to the lyrics? What's that about?
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of worked out why it is with me, and that's because I like to put my own. I don't often listen to the radio, and the reason I don't listen to the radio is because I'm just being spoon-fed whatever the producers of the show want me to listen to, and I don't like that. I like control over what I want to listen to, and if I'm listening to someone else's piece of music, I haven't got control over what I'm listening to, because I'm listening to something that they've written and recorded. So by not listening to lyrics, I can add my own creativity into that.
So you can decide what the song's about.
Yeah, which sounds a bit weird, but I think that's what's going on in my head.
But I would say that's what the majority of people do when they listen to a song anyway. They're deciding what they think that song's about to them. Because my point of view on it is that the vast majority of people that are going to listen to a song, like an actual song that's got lyrics and isn't just an instrumental, their point of connection and reference with that song is the lyrical content first and foremost. And I often think we forget that as musicians. We sort of get blown away by like, whoa, that riff was sick or whatever, you know what I mean? But actually, when someone's listening to a piece of music in general, they're connecting with the lyrics. And I think it's a real skill to be able to take lyrics and help them serve the music and vice versa. With the melody together. There's a place for everything, of course, but that's just my little small take.
What's next?
So, I was just thinking there about, I used to do songwriting workshops with especially like teenagers, stuff like that. And often the thing they would say is, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to write about. And I think that's a common thing. Like, how do you act? Because you have released songs, i.e. melodies with lyrics, that kind of. So you must have at some point had to come up with lyrics.
No.
Okay.
So when we were releasing stuff as a band, it all became very collaborative very quickly, which was good. Very good thing. And all the credits on all of our stuff is all of us, because we all contributed to it. What would generally happen was we'd be working with we had two sort of two main singers in the band throughout its history that co-wrote stuff and sort of contributed, and both of them kind of had the same approach. Us blokes would go in the studio during the day and we'd bang out some tunes. We might do one on a Sunday, we might do three on a Sunday, and then the singer would come in and they'd record what we were doing on their phone, and then they'd go and sit in the kitchen for 20 minutes and write out a load of lyrics and come up with a melody, and then come in and sing it, and we'd record it, and that would be it. Done.
That's cool.
So I never had any involvement. Yeah. But again, weirdly, I can't tell you what any of the songs we released with lyrics are about. I've got no idea at all, which is just bonkers, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's because I had no involvement in the lyrics, because it's something I'm really crap at. So, I can write a magazine article, no problem, but I can't write a song. I can't write lyrics for a song.
Do you know what? I was really crap at writing lyrics, though. Like, I kind of pinpointed what the issue was eventually. It was like I was always writing what I thought other people wanted to hear.
Right.
If that makes sense. So there was never any there was no original perspective to what I was saying. It was always, I'll say that because that, that people will like that.
People will like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I kind of found my niche, which was for me in my own head, my little niche box, it was all about stories for me.
Right.
It was about metaphors and analogies and stuff, and then it would be a puzzle, and then you could kind of extrapolate the meaning from that. That was kind of like my little fun place that I could go to.
Right.
And it's really interesting because, especially recently, I mean, I've been working on a lot of original material, and it's kind of like piecing it together, because another thing that's really overlooked with lyrics is the sound of the word.
Yeah.
It's not just about writing a poem where it rhymes. It's about the sounds of the words as well, and the rhythm of the words. Yeah. And I mean, some of the great songwriters, part of the reason they're so successful is because their lyrics translate well to other countries, to other languages, because people like the sound of the words, which I know sounds really silly, but that's the hardest part. Like I always do this thing where I'll be out and I'll be writing down lyrics or something. They'll come up in my head. I'm like, oh, that's a great line, and then I'll go home and I'll sing it, and it'll be like, oh, that's shit, because it doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth, and then I have to change it, and then the whole meaning will change, and so that's a really important thing that is like often overlooked, and
that is hugely, and that is hugely important as well as the tone of the voice.
Yeah.
And so a really extreme example of that is another song that we were talking about yesterday, another one that's over the years given me immense psychological damage, and that's Rainbow Connection, which is the opening song to the original Muppet movie.
Yeah.
And that vocal is one of the worst examples of a vocal ever in recorded history, and also the best at the same time. So it's a bloke with a beard with his hand up a felt and fabric frog's ass singing out of tune a song in a pond. And it's incredible because there's so much emotion in his voice, and if it was in tune, and if it was an opera singer singing it, or it just wouldn't have that thing that it's got. And you hear that, and again, not even listening to the lyrics, you just hear the tone of his voice, and the way that he's singing it is unbelievable. It's so vulnerable.
And I can attest to that, because you showed me it yesterday, and the amount of emotion he had listening to that.
I had to leave the room. I couldn't
literally
listen
had
to
to leave the room.
I listened to it, and I wasn't quite.
Yeah, it's obviously something that's happened to me.
Yeah, if you got a memory associated with it, or something.
Well, exactly. That's the important part of music, isn't it? Like,
but to me, it's the if there's been thousands of covers of that probably, and none of them do what that original does, because it's not Kermit.
Yeah.
And whoever does Kermit now can't do it either. It has to be Jim Henson, because he had that, whatever it was that made that whole thing so magical.
Well, it's interesting you talk about TV, because like there's this thing at the moment on TV where I don't watch a lot of TV, but things that I see, characters often want to explain every emotion they're feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's this kind of like, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that, and it's not. It's almost like they're saying to the actors, we don't trust you to act anymore, so we need you to tell the audience how you're feeling.
We're going to put it in the script.
We're actually going to put it in the script instead.
Yeah, they assume there's no ability to infer emotion.
Yeah. And that's often something that people trip up over when they're writing lyrics as well. It's like, I need to pour my heart and soul out into this, and I need to tell you exactly how I'm feeling, and exactly, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you can also pull it back a little and leave a bit of room for people to kind of like make their own inference about how you're feeling, because as soon as you release a song, it's actually not yours anymore. It's the person who's listening to it.
Yeah.
And they get to come up with their own meanings in there, and that's the beauty of the art form. Is that, so I would urge people not to tell everyone exactly what they're thinking and feeling in a song.
Yeah, and that's good for people like me as well, because then we can extract our own kind of meaning from it. And there's lots of songs I listen to that I've got no idea what they're about at all. That I do know the lyrics too, which again is good, because I can put my own my brain can put its own interpretation of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can always know what the song's about to yourself.
Yeah,
but no one else has to know that.
Yeah, they might mean something completely different.
I mean, we went on the radio when we did when we released "I Can't Stop," and the chorus was "I can't stop fixing all the flaws you've got," and I told the radio interview that it was about carpentry. And that was it. It was just like, and I said it's about carpentry. I was like, I'm not telling you what the song's about. Like, what do you think it is about? That kind of thing. It's just like, I think it's really important, personally, for me, because then that gives me a connection with the song that someone else doesn't have.
I don't think you should have to explain anything, and I think there will be people that get it, and there will be people that don't, and that's the way it should stay. No one's ever going to understand everything. It's not possible. So you should kind of embrace that. And, some people won't understand the meaning of your song, but that's fine. They can make their own meaning of it. Problem solved. Like we were talking about the other week with the K-pop thing. I don't have a clue what they're talking about. I can infer my own meanings into what I might guess it's about, but I'll never actually know. But that's half the fun of it.
Yeah.
That's half the fun.
And just on a practical point, like if you are writing songs and you're struggling with lyrics, or you're just starting out and you want to start adding lyrics to your music, watch a film, or read a book, or go and listen, go and speak to somebody and just ask them questions and remember it and use that as inspiration. Like I think it was David Bowie that used to literally cut out things from newspaper articles or magazines. Could be wrong here, might be someone else, but I think it was David Bowie, and he would actually like almost do this cubist way of putting lyrics together, because and people love those songs.
Yeah.
But learning about how and where they come from, and it probably meant something to him as well. I'm really sorry if you're a David Bowie fan, and I've actually got that wrong. It was another
it was Elvis.
artist. It was Elvis. Well, I don't know if it was Elvis.
He didn't write his own stuff, did he?
No, he didn't. But that's a really interesting technique to use, like, because if you think about, it was big in the 90s, wasn't it? Like you'd write a song for a movie like this. There's a really successful song, Diane Warren, really successful songwriter. I think she's got the most number ones, along with like Lionel Richie, on the Billboard Hot Top Shot 100 or whatever they call it, over the pond. And she says like, oh, I love writing for films.
Yeah,
because I can watch the film, or I can see what the film's about, and then that puts me right in the zone. And who's to say you can't take a line from the script, or a line, or even something someone says to you when you're talking to them at some point, or if they're shouting at you, usually the position I'm in, "Oi, what are you doing?" There you go, there's your chorus. Oi, what are you doing?
Oi, what you doing? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like lyrics are not as difficult as people often say that. It's just you got to change your mindset essentially to write lyrics, and that's really, I think, as hard and as simple as it is.
How important do you think musical knowledge is? Because I would regard my musical knowledge as limited. I mean, I could sit down and play you an A-7, but I wouldn't really. Yeah, you put a bit of sheet music in front of me, I'm lost.
Musical knowledge.
So let's go to Rainbow Connection again. So that melody, I think, is one of the greatest melodies ever written.
Well, I would say that's a crafted melody.
It's unbelievable. And I could never write anything like that, because I don't know. Maybe I could, but it wouldn't be as good as. And again, what was the other one? The Willy Wonka one.
Pure imagination.
Pure imagination. That repeats so the first verse repeats the same thing twice, but the chords the second time it repeats are very, very different, and it gives you all these unexpected. Oh, I wasn't expecting that, and it adds a huge amount of interest and stuff. And I couldn't envisage myself doing something like that because my musical knowledge isn't good enough. So how important is that to?
Well, it isn't important, isn't it? Like it's another tool that you've got to use that can enhance, so you can then say to yourself, right, well, actually, I'm going to change this chord here. But it can also be a blessing not having that musical knowledge, because on the one hand, you can say, like, well, I understand exactly how I can get from, I can play giant steps and I can put a melody over the top of that and that would work. But how many people will connect with that? But then at the same time, if you've got a very rudimentary understanding of chords and you actually don't know, say, for example, how to go 2-5-1 or something like that, or 4-5-1 or whatever it is, that can also be a good thing because you can follow your ear.
Yeah.
And you're not bound by the rules. I say one of the most important pieces of advice I was given, because I knew that I wanted to write songs and do music from a very young age. I was speaking to a guy who'd worked in the music industry, and I was telling him I'm going to go and study jazz. And he said, whatever you do, if you want to be a songwriter, make sure you come back and make sure you forget. Now what I remind myself to do a lot, because I mean I'm not the greatest musician in the world, but I've studied music a lot, and sometimes the hardest thing I had to learn was to turn that off, actually, and to just almost surrender to the fact that it didn't matter if I wrote a song that only had 4 chords in it. It doesn't matter. What matters is how those chords connect with the melody and the lyrics. Now, I've got an ace up my sleeve in that if I need to bring something in to lift the emotion at some point, I can call on some of that information and stick a certain chord in. Or maybe I've got a melody and it's a nice melody, it's working really well, especially in a co-writing situation in particular. This is really useful. You go, actually, like, instead of jumping up an octave, why don't you jump up an octave and then go down to the major 7th or something? And straight away, somewhere over the rainbow, that kind of thing, right? Because that adds a bit of tension, and straight away you're creating a different feeling. So it's good. Just don't hold on to that musical knowledge as the be all and end all,
right? Because
again, I go back to Diane Warren. She was talking about, she wrote "Unbreak My Heart."
Yeah.
When that bit comes in and goes, "Unbreak my heart," that bit there.
Yeah.
I think that goes from something like D minor to B minor or something like, or maybe the other way around. Any yourself or no, any musicians out there, they're not related, those chords, yet the emotional impact and punch of that is pretty phenomenal. You might not like the song, and if you listen to her talk about it, she goes, well, I don't know what the fuck I was doing, it just sounded good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she would say, I would not have done that had I been very much well schooled in music. But then at the same time, if you go to someone like Paul Simon, you listen to him talk about, how he would write songs, and he's constantly searching for new things and new ways to do things. And there's an amazing, I really recommend you watch it, no matter what you think of his music. Bridge Over Troubled Water. He went on the Dick Cavett show in 1970, and he breaks down the song like, he, which I think maybe kind of freaks out Dick Cavett a little bit, because he actually picks up the guitar and everything, and he sort of says, when you're weary, he starts playing that. When you're feeling small, when tears are in your eye, he's like, he gets to that bit, he's like, that's a Bach chorale. And then he plays the Bach chorale, and you're like, holy shit. Yeah, so he's actually gone from this first idea, and then he's got writer's block. So then he's gone to the next bit, and he's been inspired by a Bach chorale. But then it gets more interesting, because then he's been inspired by, I think it's the Silvertones, I think they were. And I think, and they shout something in, it's like, I'll be your bridge over rough water or something like that. Right. And he says, that's my chorus. That's it. So then he goes gospel, and straight away you're like, he didn't set out to write a gospel song at all. But he sure enough
it just
ended up with
it almost got a life of its own, evolved,
because he was seeking different influences. And at the same time, with his song Still Crazy after all these years, he said to himself, I'm going to write a song which uses every single note of the chromatic scale, so how do you do that?
That's interesting, because I used to do things like that all the time. So there's a few, not songs, tunes, pieces of music I've written where I've gone down and gone, right, I'm going to come up with a chord sequence, and I want loads of tension in it because it's funk or whatever, and every single chord I'm going to use has got to have two notes that are next to each other in it. And go on. Oh yeah, that kind. Change the bass and that kind of way. One might be an octave up, but in a lot of cases they were physically next to each other, so there'd be an F and an F sharp in the middle of the chord, and I'd sort of piece stuff together, not musically at all, just for going, right, I'm going to do this, and
but
it's going to have.
This is the key thing. This is the key thing about writing songs is that it's not, I sit down and I meditate and whoa, there's like a lovely, amazing song falling out of my arse, and isn't that wonderful? I've shat gold again. That's not how it works. The whole point is that what you're doing there and what Paul Simon's doing when he's writing is he's playing a game with himself. He's challenging himself. He's saying, right, can I fit all of these notes in? So he's getting to a point, I think he's like, when he 4 a.m, when he gets to that bit, and I think he was stuck before he got to that point. And all of a sudden, he's just like, right, I need to leave. I haven't used this note yet. How am I going to get? Well, I'm just going to go there, and I'm going to see if it works, and then I'm going to make it work. Yeah, using some musical knowledge, because he's, studied and music and all that kind of stuff. And but that's actually the key point. If I was going to give people tips about writing songs, it's play games. Like go, if you often write music in, let's say, funk, soul, go and write something EDM. Go and do some EDM or something. Like, learn about that style of music. Now, you might not want to have that boom drop coming in, but you can be inspired by it.
There's a lot you can
and
take
you can use it, and then all of a sudden, that's going to lead on to something else, and you're going to become more and more inspired. And we're talking about the same thing that we're talking about writing lyrics. It's going and finding that little thing that's going to make you go, oh. And, there's no shame in, when you're writing lyrics, to write a line again and again and again and again and again. A really good thing to do is like to go and you can like divide the page, right, in half, and you write your initial lyrics, and you might look at them and go, oh, they're a bit shit, I don't like them. So then you make sure that on the other side of the page, you can then start writing different lyrics. And you start trying different things, and then you start to see, oh, well, that works, that doesn't work, the whole meaning of the song's changing completely. And you just keep playing with the puzzle. And that's why I love songwriting, because it's a game, it's fun. It's and the problem is we have this perception where everything just like is meant to happen straight away. I've had songs that I've written like that, but I've had songs that have taken 3-4 years to write.
And probably a load that you've never finished.
Well, hundreds that I've never finished, for sure. But that is actually the important part of the songwriting process, is having all those songs. And sometimes you might go back to them and go, well, I really like that line.
And
just that line.
And assemble songs out of 3 unfinished ones or something like that.
Exactly. I'm sure you could write whole albums or whole songs maybe based on whole albums of material that you haven't used, all that kind of stuff. It's a game, it's play, and we forget how to play when we grow up. And that's part of what's fun about writing songs, is that you get to play all the time, especially if it's your job. And then co-writing, you get to play with other people.
Yeah, exactly. This is...
Exactly. And that is another fun experience, because you can put all those tools into motion when you're co-writing. So you can actually... I remember the story about Nile Rodgers. Diana Ross wants to do an album with him, and he basically sits down and he says, well, what do you want this album to be about? And she's like, oh, well, I feel like I'm coming out of my shell. I feel like I'm coming out of something, and he's like, I'm coming out. And there you go. That's it. She was like, I just want the world to know, what I'm about. And I got it. And
And again, he can do that, but he's got his own rules as well. Like, you always come in with the title of the song is like, I'm coming out, let's dance. It's straight in with let's dance. You're straight in with like, he always sings. You always get the main line of the song is like straight in. That's it.
But you can use that when you're co-writing. Let's say, for example, you're working with an artist, so you're a producer, you're working with an artist, and either they haven't started or they're stuck on lyrics. Talk to them. Ask them what they're up to.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't always have to be like, I feel this way, or I feel this way. What do you do when you feel that way? Rather than how do you feel? Like, so they say, I've just broken up with my boyfriend or girlfriend, and I'm feeling really sad. So instead of just writing, I just broke up with my boyfriend, I feel really sad. It's like, what do you do when you feel really sad?
Yeah.
People can connect with that because they can go, well, I would do that as well.
I do that, yeah.
You know, so your lyrics might be, I don't know, like, onto my second tub of Ben and Jerry's or something like that.
Yeah, putting another bar of soap up my bum.
Okay.
No.
That's just you.
That's why I don't write lyrics.
But I reckon some of your lyrics would be hilarious if you did actually write lyrics. That's the thing. It's just the world isn't ready.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So, I mean, that you say, like, starting, finishing, these are all things that people struggle with. You know, people don't start for those precise reasons that we're talking about, is that they think that they have to sort of, you know, come up with a finished product straight away. It needs to happen like that. You know, it can take ages to write a song.
Yeah. Or it can take 3 minutes.
And it could be the best and it could be the worst song you've ever written.
Yeah.
You could spend years on something and it could still be shit.
And I have.
Sorry, but that's just the way it goes, you know? That's what it's all about. So, yeah. I mean, I've got a quote written down.
Go for it.
Go for it. We love a good quote.
From Rick Rubin. And it says, the best art divides the audience. Half love it and half hate it. If everyone says that's pretty good, why bother making it? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good advice.
I like that.
Because this is going to be inauthentic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was doing for about 10, 15 years. I was just writing stuff that I was hoping other people would like. And the first time I ever wrote something that I was proud, I played it to you. And you said, oh, I've got a lump in my throat kind of thing. I was like, shit, it's worked.
That was the soap coming.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, the smell of your own farts, probably.
Yep.
But yeah,
and we know all about those.
But yeah, I think that's the key, is that actually just writing for yourself. And the audience are important, but forget about the audience when you're writing, because they're not there.
No. Yeah, no, exactly.
So why bother? You know what I mean? We're not. It's not jazz.
Exactly.
We could talk about some tips for songwriting.
I think some tips for songwriting
would be very useful.
Very good.
Yes. So
might be able to save myself from the endless pit of non-creativity. Probably not.
Well, okay, so if you were writing a song, what would you do?
Exactly. I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know where to start. I can take, as I said earlier, I can take the starting seed provided by someone else and I can build upon that, but I can't get the initial chord sequence or melody or whatever.
So why does the other person have to provide that seed?
Because my brain just cannot think of it.
But what are you doing when they provide that seed for you? So what are you saying to them?
They'll come up
with them.
Just basing this on experience writing with Jamie, for example. He would come up with a random, 2-bar melody or whatever, just a little tinkle of a melody, and instantly I'd be like, right, we need to do this. As soon as I hear that very first bit, that gives me the spark to then do anything with it. It's just I can't formulate what it should be to start. As soon as those first 8 notes or whatever are there, we can run with it.
You've realised that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You know that you need to work with someone that can plant that seed. So if I was to write, so I'm quite good at planting the seed, but I'm not very good at following up on it. So if I was to write a song like Now, for example, it's probably going to be about a cat,
of course,
isn't it? It would probably go something like "Flop cat, he's got a floppy little face," and then you could take that and
so you can't start and you can't finish.
Yes,
basically.
Perfect team.
Frustrating, isn't it?
So I mean, how many instruments do you play?
I play drums and guitar.
So could you pick up a guitar and play 2 or 3 notes in succession?
Yes, I could do that.
so you can come up with a musical idea.
I theoretically could. I can't say whether it would be any good, but I could do it.
So would you say the block is actually your own mental block with it?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I take full responsibility.
No, I don't think it's about... I don't think you need to say you take full responsibility for it. I think it's more a case of that's your block is the starting point.
Exactly. It's just that's the way my brain works. I can't formulate that, but as soon as there's that little spark of something, I'm like, right, it needs to go in that direction. I can hear it straight away. Like you could literally play me a riff and I'll be like, I can hear the entire song in my head.
Right, so tap someone on the desk. Okay, okay, so you take that.
Yeah.
All right, and then we got loads of technology now.
Oh, we do.
So you can put that into Logic, MIDI, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Pick a note. Okay.
E
so
flat.
go and grab your guitar.
Yeah.
And pick a note on the guitar and play
Yeah.
Yeah. Then pick a scale because you know your scales, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's a pentatonic scale, and turn that into a melody.
There we
Which
go.
sounds like something else, but
Yeah.
you know, but that's how you start straight away. You know, so you take that piece of information.
Yep.
What do? Do you repeat it? Maybe. Do you add to it? Add another thing, and then repeat that again. People want to be able to hear things that are repeated, don't they?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like repetition can kind of really be an earworm. It can kind of really hook the viewer in because it gives them something relatable.
So I would argue that you just wrote the beginning of a song there.
Yeah.
There we go.
And if when you do repeat it, if you can mix it up a bit, so like with Pure Imagination, the second time that repeats in the verse, the chords are a lot cleverer.
Yes.
And that hooks me
changing
in.
it around a bit,
Yeah.
keep it interesting.
Yeah, so it's the same melody, but
Yes.
but the what's under it is gets more magical.
I must admit, I haven't done it in quite a while. I haven't written anything because we've been busy doing other bits, but I do miss at least trying. I haven't tried in quite a while, and I think maybe I should.
And that's probably because you tell yourself you're going to be crap.
Exactly,
as well.
and I'm the kind of person that gets quite frustrated as well if I can't do it, which I'm sure many other people experience. But I like fast results. That's the thing. When I'm editing a video, I can see exactly what I'm doing. I know how it's going to go. I can do it quick. When it comes to music writing, if I can't see that result straight away, sometimes my brain's like, it's not going to work. And then I convince myself it's not going to work.
And that's the difference between me and you when it comes to writing the videos as well. You have to sit down and write it. If the video's 20 minutes long, you have to sit down and write it all in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas I can take 3 weeks over it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I keep going out and having a fag. And that's when the ideas come. And then I delete what I wrote 3 days ago. And no, that's the difference.
So we've proven that you could write a song.
Yes.
But it's about the mindset.
Yeah,
and
that's probably a massive thing.
Being willing to play with yourself.
For sure.
Essentially, which is what you're doing. Yeah, you're playing a game with yourself.
Yes.
You know, so you could. So another thing you could do. What's one of your favourite songs?
A rock song maybe by a band called While She Sleeps. I guess.
Right. Let's pick something everyone knows. Let's pick a famous song. Pick a
Thriller by Michael Jackson.
Thriller.
Just as an
All
example.
right, sing Thriller. Okay, so now if you take that out of context, because you sang a bit of the bass line and then you sang
yeah,
that's a different melody.
it is indeed.
Straight away you've written something new.
And if you put that with your rhythm, you've got a whole...
What was the rhythm?
There we go.
Straight away, you're coming up with ideas. So you just need someone to poke and prod you.
Yeah, that is exactly it. I need someone to
make
kind of push me in the right direction, and
but that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where you've got like so you've got people who it tends to be younger people. What they call them, like young geniuses, you know, where it's like bang, it just comes out.
Yeah.
Your 20-minute script, bang, your 20-minute song, and everything that's coming out is great because there's a template that they're using and it's easy peasy. It's great, you know, like. And then you've got the more old masters kind of archetype, which is, you know, you just sit with it and you go on a journey and you play a game with it. And you're not afraid to go, that shit. I don't want to do that anymore. And you just carry on until you get where you need to get to.
Yeah.
So that's the answer, I guess. That's the full circle thing. So I mean, like, So you play guitar, you play drums.
Yes.
So pick up a different instrument.
I use the term play rather loosely nowadays, but I do play.
But you can go with your index finger and go and play Mark's organ, and it will make
and
a
I
pleasant
know how
sound.
a keyboard works as well. You know, I know a number of scales and stuff on a piano, so I could apply those knowledges sparingly.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, it's just having the right mindset. That's totally the right way of putting it. You know, you just have to be in the right mood, and if you're not in the right mood, maybe it won't work. You know, that's probably the case every time I've tried. It's just there's not the right inspiration, and then you get frustrated,
and then you give up.
So
maybe you should write a song about being frustrated and giving up. That just ends at the point at which you become frustrated and give up.
Just ends on the first bar.
Yeah, and you could do that. You could do an album of
you could
of 24-second songs.
Yeah, because there are no rules. You know,
we call it shit talk or something.
Shit talk.
Tit talk.
Yeah, shit talk.
Tit talk. Tit.
Tit cock.
Yes. Titch.
And Titchmarsh.
Titchmarsh
sings TikTok.
Yeah,
songs.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So that's a a way to get started. Obviously, if you co-write with someone as well and you're thinking about lyrics, you've got to take the same approach. You've got to ask them questions.
For sure. See, that's something I've never even tried because I don't think there's any hope there. Like, I can do the instrumentation, but lyrics just don't.
Yeah, but the best lyrics, it's like talking, it's like speaking. It's how you would speak to another person, another human being. It's the most relatable way to write lyrics.
For sure.
Instead of getting all flowery with your language and trying to impress your lover with your vociferous use of vocabulary,
That was very vociferous.
Yeah.
Take Moo Juice, for example. I was trying to get a distinct message across, and the message I was trying to get across was that I've been to the shop and I've got some milk. I'm all right, thanks very much. And the lyrics are, I've got some Moo Juice, I've got it in my cup.
I think we need to find this track and share it because it is quite a banger. I do remember it. It's
and do you know what? I think that Nicki Minaj would really like to buy those lyrics off of you. I think that's like definitely up.
God.
That's in her kind of wheelhouse. I think Moo Juice. She could probably make you a cool million.
Nicki Minaj drinking milk on a barge.
There you go. Singing DeBarge.
Singing DeBarge with Nigel Farage.
This is where the genius happens.
We should probably end here, shouldn't we?
Yes.
Algorithm of the night.
Oh!
That's good. There we go. But yeah, thank you for watching this recording of the live stream, and we very much appreciate it. And you will see us next week when we've fixed the internet.
And when James would have written a song.
Yes, and we will introduce next week's live stream with that song.
I can't wait. That'll be great. Thanks very much. See you soon. Goodbye.